The following podcast is a next level production.
They entombed her in her hut.
But someone's gone and opened up the door. That someone being...
She wouldn't.
She would. What? Sacrifice your child surprise to get her magic back? You bet your bloated biceps she would.
Hey panelers, welcome back to the show. I'm Steve.
And I'm Lara.
And this is going to be a spoiler-full podcast for the 7th episode of The Witcher Season 2. And Lara, I'm not even going to try to say that title, so I'm going to let you give us the title and synopsis this week.
Okay, I'll go for it. This week's episode is Voleth Meir. Geralt turns to a humble bard for help. Yennefer realizes just how special Ciri is, and tensions rise on the eve of the Emperor Emir's visit to Sintra.
I had some confusing things in this episode, so maybe when we get to the discussion, we'll be able to figure some things out, because I was confused, but then some of my confusion doesn't matter because the characters that I was confused about are dead. So we're not going to have to worry about them in the next episode. But tell me, what did you think of this? What were your initial thoughts on this one?
An amazing episode. Penultimate episode this week. 10 out of 10 chicken-legged witch huts. I had so many laughs, mainly from Jaskier and the dwarves, and so many hell yeah moments that we're going to get into.
I loved it as well. It was so good. I mean, there was so much kind of jam-packed into it, and it's setting up for that final episode that we're going to get to. But that ending, man, both times watching it, it was tough to not just go to the next one, because we'll talk about it when we get there. But my goodness, that ending, whoosh! I don't know. I was sitting in the dark parking lot of my daughter's ballet studio when watching this, because that's where most parents hang out and wait for their kids. And I'm watching it in there, and I swear people must have seen me in there, like throwing my arms up in the air and laughing and clapping. This did have a little bit of everything, and I can't wait for us to get into it. So before we go any further, as we do each week, we'll talk about what was new. Well, there wasn't anything new.
No new
characters this episode, but we do get some returning ones, which I loved. I was absolutely just delighted, over the top, to see Yarpen Zegrin, one of the elves we saw in the dragon episode. Or they're dwarves, right? Mm-hmm. They're not elves.
Dwarves.
They're dwarves. Right, okay. The dwarves we saw in that dragon episode in season 1, along with his whole band of following him. And I have a note in my notes about even the female dwarves seem to have beards. So I thought that was really, really cool. All right. So with that, we can get into our top 5.
Zola, you've been here before.
The woman who lives here, she took me in. She was kind to me. A dream. I first heard your name was in this house. Same day Geralt found me.
That's why the portal took us here. It felt safe.
Should I try again? Get us back to Geralt?
No, that was impressive, but no. Let's keep our insides on the inside.
And as we do every week, Lara, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so my point number 5 was whenever, wherever, we're meant to be together. Yay, the bromance lives! So we get the return of the Geralt and Jaskier bromance. The setup is that Geralt has asked Nenneca to portal him somewhere. We don't know where he's going, but we find out it's to Oxenford to break Jaskier out of prison. We hear this voice singing in the jail cell, voice of an angel, but merry and cheeky as always, even when in jail. And even though he was hurt by Geralt, I love how he's just sitting there in jail, sees one of the guards get knocked out, and continues to sing his merry song about the prison keeper being a whoreson. And, even though he's mad at Geralt, he just says, fuck it, gives him a big hug. All is forgiven, but he does give him a little bit of a dressing down. Telling him, you don't just tell me to fuck off and leave me on top of a mountain. Look at these boots. I had to slide all the way down the mountain.
Yeah, I loved them getting back together. It was really cool. And Jaskier did everything except you had me at hello. It was really, really great. But that moment when Geralt says, I need you. And you just see Jaskier's face just go like he
needs me. It's like all he's ever dreamt of.
Yes. It's a wonderful, wonderful bromance that we haven't had enough of it this season. And so I hope moving forward, we don't have these guys breaking up again, even though we do see them. They kind of part ways at the end, but they're going to have to come back together now. But we'll talk about that when we get to the end of the episode. So
yeah, they gave me a birthday gift too. This weekend was my birthday. That's when I watched it. And not only did we get Jaskier in an episode, not only did we get a reunion between Jaskier and Geralt in an episode, but we get to see Jaskier take off his shirt and take a bath. I guess it's his turn to take a bath this season. And oh my bejesus. Under all that prim and pomp and everything, Jaskier's a beast. That dude is more shredded than confetti. What the hell? Why is he not fighting? Why is he not fighting with Geralt?
Well, he doesn't have the bloated biceps that Geralt has, so
he's not taking enough Witcher elixir, I guess.
There you go. So my first one is really it's some more confusion, or maybe not confusion really, but just about the fact that they seem to be able to track Ciri wherever she goes. I mean, we see that Rents was somehow at that cabin that Ciri hid out in in season 1 with that family, where she had that moment of quiet where you thought, oh gosh, she's actually somebody's helping her and protecting her. And I don't remember why did she leave just because the soul. I don't remember why she left.
Why she left Zola? Well, first she was going to run in the first season, or that was the family that protected her in the first season, who gave her shelter.
Right. And she just left because she had to move on.
Well, I think she left them because she didn't want to put them in danger, because she knows that some bad people are after her. But then as she was escaping the house, that's when she found Geralt too. So she left with him.
Okay. And then we have Yennefer, she lies about Nilfgaard having Geralt, which they end up meeting up there at Cintra anyway. And because that's where the monolith doorway is. But it ended up being that the witch didn't even need Ciri to go through the doorway. And we'll talk some more about how the witch was able to get released from her. But the whole thing was kind of really unclear to me with that. Just what was the plan?
Yeah.
The whole time, because like the Deathless Mother is telling Yennefer to bring Ciri to the monolith, and so she almost gets to the monolith, and then Yennefer, or Ciri, admits to Yennefer that she's the one that broke the monolith, and that kind of makes Yennefer realize just how powerful Ciri is. And then we see her do this shout that breaks the castle, and brings the soldiers running to come get her. But there's a moment in there also in that Yennefer-Ciri conversation where Ciri admits that Geralt is the father she never had.
Yes.
And I this note is just running the complete gambit, but and also we get Yennefer admitting that there's something more between her and Geralt than just, the genie wish. She's starting to think maybe there is something more here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know, that was one of my major highlights, was the quest of Ciri and Yennefer. I don't know if we just want to continue talking about that one. Yeah. But to your point of, first of Rience finding that hut, the home of the family that took Ciri in, I just kind of chalked that up to his detective work. I mean, he's been set on this path to find Ciri. Some people, and Lydia did tell him that the last place she was seen was in a marketplace just outside of some town. And so he probably went there. He might have even, talked to some people who saw her leave with Zola. So he was probably able to track them down and probably tortured them, trying to get some information on Ciri. So that's what I just kind of deduced, obviously. It's just me kind of putting some random points together. But
sure.
With Yennefer, what were you asking about Yennefer? About what was confusing?
It was, well,
the fact that she didn't really need to take her to the shattered door to release the mother, the Deathless Mother. Yeah, well, my theory about that, and I don't know if we want to talk about how she escaped her hut, but was it her? Or was it someone else who said that she thrives on desperation and pain? And that's why even she said
Geralt, Geralt says that. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the episode where she actually meets Francesca, Frangilla, and Yennefer, she tells Yennefer, I want your desperation baked some more, I want, before I take, I want you to bake a little more. So one of the things that happened that I think helped to release her from her imprisonment is, first of all, Frangilla thinks that she's getting her wish because she's given power, and then she loses it. Francesca thinks she's getting her wish because she has her child, and then she loses it. And Yennefer, who refused to cut a deal with the witch, she walked away from him, but she in her desperation, she called on the witch, and the witch said, go find this girl Ciri and bring her to me. So that kind of forced Yennefer to betray Geralt, the one thing that Geralt cares about the most, take her away, abduct her, and that that kind of creates her own desperation, because not only does she lose Ciri, but she also, which she believes is the only way she's going to get her magic back, but she also loses Geralt. Because I was kind of thinking, I wonder if the Deathless Mother was even going to be able to give Yennefer her powers back, even if she did bring her Ciri, or if that was just a play to get her to do something she wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're completely right. And as you were saying that, I was turning it over in my head, and what I realized is through what we're seeing here is the Deathless Mother, Voleth Meir, the demon, has had basically multiple irons in the fire. She's had multiple ways that she can be released, and she knows that, okay, yeah, if you bring Ciri to the monolith and I'm able to draw her to the hut, then I can use her power to escape. Or if Frangilla, gets enough, like you said, enough desperation, losing her power, I'll get enough power to escape. But it was ultimately Francesca, the baby, being murdered, and I've got this later in my notes as well. So we may come back to this again. That's the ultimate act of desperation and pain that gives her the power to break out of the hut. And I think that's basically what Geralt says there at the end when they find the empty hut. He says, oh, she must have gotten enough, she must have drawn in enough pain and desperation that she was able to escape our bonds.
Yeah, and she was clever because she made them think what is the best way to feel pain and desperation? When you think the thing that you long for the most is in your grasp, and then to have it taken away.
Yes, you have this great swelling hope, and then it just gets dashed. So, very, very good. Okay. So that was your second one?
Yeah, actually that was my first, but
okay. We can jump around.
We'll move it around. I just really loved how, as we are watching Yennefer and Ciri travel together on this quest, we actually see them bonding a little. I personally would have actually liked to see more of that. I feel things have been a little bit rushed this season. I would have liked to see her bond more with Geralt too, but when they're in the house and yet Ciri comes upon the murdered family, Yennefer actually stands in front of her and tries to guard her from having to see that. And then when she's trying to teach her magic to raise the bridge, and Ciri just tries so desperately and so hard to use her magic that her eyes actually start bleeding, and she actually I don't know what, teleports them, basically, them and the horses, like right across the bridge. And, Yennefer holds her in her hands and says, "Never be ashamed of your power," and she really started feeling, it seemed to me like her and Ciri were starting to get the kind of bond that her and Tissaia have. That mentor to student bond, or even mother-daughter bond.
Okay. I was so confused in that instance when Ciri fails to lift the bridge and then she yells, and suddenly Yennefer goes, "Well, I guess that's one way to do it." I didn't realize that's what had happened, is she had teleported them across
the river.
Yeah. I didn't. I was just like, what do you mean? You're still stuck. But no. Okay, that's what got them across the. Gotcha. Okay.
And at first I thought it was just them, but you see as the scene is closing, they're walking and the horses are over there too. So she teleported all of them across the river.
Right. Okay. So she has a raw magic power that just.
Yes.
Yeah, succumbs to her wishes. And
it's powerful. She just can't control it, like she tells Yennefer.
And that may answer your question about, we didn't see any new monsters come out.
No.
When she used her magic. At least we didn't see them. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. We just didn't see it.
Yeah. So. We did see the cool mind meld, though. We talked about that for a minute. Ciri goes to touch Yennefer, and I love the direction, the way it just went zzz, and super focused on them in that kind of vignette.
Yeah, and there's that moment between them where Yennefer, it like I said, the second time, and I had the subtitles on both times, but I really had to pay attention to, and I was glad the subtitles kind of labeled who was saying what, because it could have been confusing if you didn't see that it was Yennefer was telling Ciri, if you're not sure 100% about this, you need to run. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that the...
She almost was... I think she was... Like, this whole time, she was doubting herself whether she actually wanted to take Ciri to the Deathless Mother or not. And I think at the end there, that was her kind of telling Ciri to leave, to get away. Because she said it was too late for her. She was like, if you're, you can leave, just leave.
Right. Okay, so that's kind of what I thought was going on there, that she was basically telling Ciri, you need to run because even though I can't get away from her, you can still get away from her. So, okay.
Yeah, okay. And I also loved, there was one more thing in here that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, just the point that we keep hearing Voleth Meir in Yennefer's head, just constantly needling her, constantly saying, come on, you're so close, you're so close. Oh, so Ciri mentions to Yennefer that she knew that mage and the Matelli brothers? I can't remember. But the guys who came and invaded the temple school, I was wondering if she did. Do you think Yennefer could have led them to Ciri?
I don't think so, because I think what we're seeing there was we're seeing the multiple things that the witch had working for her. Mm-hmm. So I don't think Yennefer led them to the temple, because remember we had that scene with Lydia and Rents where she tells him, oh, you're going to need a crew to attack that temple. We talked about that.
Yeah.
So they already knew Ciri was at the temple. So I don't think Yennefer had anything to do with, she may have known them or known about them, but I don't think she had anything to do with them getting to the temple or getting into the temple. That there was a lot of stuff last week that was just kind of yada yada in a way that we didn't really.
If she did, work with them or was somehow in league with them, that would kind of explain how she found Ciri at the temple school.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think she would work with that guy, but I don't know. Ciri brought it up, so I'm like, whoa, was Yennefer involved with them?
Okay. I just don't see it. I really think Yennefer was there independent of those. Like, I think she was, let me restate that. I think what we saw this episode and what you just indicated with hearing the Deathless Mother's whispers in everybody's head, I think everybody was working for her independently and they didn't realize that
Okay.
the others were. So I think Rentz and his guys were, because I don't, and obviously unless we find out that Lydia's employer was somebody different, which we may not ever get, I don't know. We'll talk about that whole thing when we get to one of my points. But I think they were all kind of independently working for the Deathless Mother, and they didn't realize it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I think each, like she was counting on each thing. She had multiple opportunities that were going to help her escape. Yeah. And all of them kind of working together is what got her out of there. So.
Cool. That was it.
Let's talk for a minute about this continuing strife between Fringilla and Cahir and those other generals that we have there. You know, we have this. It's kind of this conversation between Cahir and Fringilla and the other guy who I never figured out what his name was.
I just put him as General Dickhead in my notes.
Okay, General Dickhead. You know, they're talking about how the elves aren't trustworthy, how they didn't show up for muster, and and then suddenly when she goes and she meets with Phil and Francesca, she finds out that we've changed our mind, we're not going to help you anymore, and suddenly Fringilla sees all of her, like you said, all of her power is suddenly slipping away because now she doesn't have this elven army that she was going to be able to tell the Emperor, hey, look, I brought all these extra soldiers that are going to fight for us because now the elves aren't going to do it. And it was great that moment you could see the break between Francesca and Fringilla in that moment when Francesca says, you're not family.
You're not blood.
And suddenly, you're not blood. Yeah. And we suddenly realize that Francesca is saying, no, we may have had some sort of tentative alliance, but it's gone. Now that I have a child, and this is what makes her desperation, her pain, like you said before, is so much more heightened because she suddenly saw a future for the elves. She saw civilization. She saw them being able to live on. And, you know, the human General Dickhead, he's worried because the elves live longer. And he's like, suddenly we're going to have centuries. They're going to live for centuries and we're going to die out. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's really interesting that the political machinations kind of that are going on there about, and we get again that repeat from the king that Dijkstra works for, where they're talking
Vesemir?
about
or no, not Vesemir.
Yeah, it's another Meir thing. Yeah,
yeah, we'd have to go back some notes.
But he says the same thing still, that if they can get a hold of Ciri and control Ciri, they'll be in power, you know.
Yeah, that actually goes into one of my other points in one of my highlights, which was number 4, is now number 3. Fringilla handles it, because that's what she tells Cahir when General Dickhead is sitting there patronizing her and saying, you know, oh, this is a leader. A leader can't do what I can do, and he goes and hangs some poor elf child who was just trying to find food. And so, you know, Francesca says she's going to handle it, goes and talks to the elves, but like you said, they've had a change of heart. Like, her storyline in this episode was just as good as all the other ones. There were some great storylines in this episode. But she goes to visit her uncle Arturius at Aretusa, thank you. Damn, all these names.
Yeah.
And he tells her that, you know, he gives her this whole speech about, you know, how some mages, you know, first she's going to have to come to the Brotherhood of Mages and apologize, basically grovel in front of them for aligning with Nilfgaard. And then, you know, he says some mages, you know, they want power, and some of them know their place, and basically tells her he's glad that she knows her place, basically. So it's just to be this subservient mage who just works for all these rulers and does nothing. So, you know, she takes that speech he gives her, and it basically pushes her over the edge after having to deal with Cahir and General Dickhead and Francesca breaking up their alliance, and the elves deciding they're not going to fight for Nilfgaard anymore. We have this awesome scene where the generals are sitting there, dumping on Frangilla again, and all of a sudden they're frozen. And she is so ruthless.
So brutal.
So ruthless. Just goes up there and tells them, I don't really appreciate a lot of the stuff I learned in Aretusa, but I did learn botany, and I did learn how to hide nightshade in mead and basically paralyze people.
Yeah, that was just absolutely brutal. She pushes the knife through that one guy's eye.
And the crazy thing is, they're frozen, but you could see their eyes moving, so they know everything that's going on.
Yeah, they can feel everything. And then she gets to Cahir, and she says, I kind of understand that, if she killed Cahir, she needs Cahir alive because she needs somebody to tell the Emperor that what she did was justified.
Yes.
Whereas if she kills everybody, the Emperor comes in, she can say whatever she wants, but he may or may not believe it.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely hung after that. But if it was a righteous mutiny, then she needs Cahir to be her ally.
Right. She needs Cahir to back her up, and that's basically what she says. He says, make sure you tell Emir when he comes in about this mutinous, discussion that was going on. And I'm like, they weren't really, I see. It was I had that moment in the second watch, because the first watch I was super confused. And the second watch I was like, oh, she's basically telling him, you better lie or I'm going to kill you too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that her actions basically teaches Cahir, and should probably teach all of them, never mess with the mage. I mean, they have magic, and it's pretty powerful magic too. As she was sticking that knife in General Dickhead's eye, she says something, and I had to put the captions on because after hearing it so many times, I couldn't understand what she was saying. But that's also because the Deathless Mother was speaking through her. And she said that she learned, on the day she left Aretusa, she learned a lesson from Yennefer when Yennefer took her seat at the kingdom she was supposed to go to. And she says, whenever a lesser light tries to steal what is yours, you do not sit there and take it. She said it with such vile, venom in her voice. It was so crazy. That
Very
actress
good.
did a great job in that scene.
So it's going to be interesting when we see next week what the political ramifications are of this, and when the Emperor comes in, what's he going to think? What's Cahir going to say? Is he going to back her up? Is he not? It's going to be interesting next week. We're going to find out what's going to happen with Nilfgaard, and we got a lot of stuff they got to wrap up next week. And maybe
I think Cahir is pretty much shitting his pants right there.
Absolutely.
He's going to sing like a bird. But her praises, that is. And the one last thing I had in that whole Frangilla story was, I believe, it's my theory, but it could have been anyone else because this baby caused a lot of turmoil in Sintra, but I believe that it was Frangilla who didn't kill the baby herself, but she probably hired someone to kill that baby because that baby was standing in the way of her having the elves on their side.
Yeah, I was wondering that if we're going to find out who, I'm assuming we're going to find out who murdered the baby. But that was the after I watched it the first time, I must have blinked or something the first time, because when I was watching it the second time, I thought the baby just died. And then when I watched it for the second time, obviously I got to the end, I was like, oh no, the baby didn't just die. She was murdered by somebody. Like somebody went into the crib and killed the baby. I'm like, we got to find out who that is. And like you said, I think you might be right. I think you might be on the right track there, that it was either Frangilla or Frangilla directing somebody to do it. Maybe, no, it wouldn't be Dara, because Dara had already broken off with Dijkstra. So,
and that's like the second baby to die in 2 seasons. So horses and babies do not fare well on this series.
No. Which that kind of leads into my next one, which is Dijkstra's visit to Aretusa, which I think it was interesting that he knows that Triss is there. He knows that she was in the mountains. He knows about Ciri. He knows everything, basically. And I'm assuming a lot of that is probably because he got a lot of information from Dara before Dara left Redania. But he also is still, he must have spies in other places and stuff. And we find out that his kingdom still wants Ciri. Nilfgaard everybody still wants Ciri. And the Deathless Mother is going to be the one who actually gets her, though. Mm-hmm. And we'll see that at the end. And we'll see how that plays out going forward. But Dijkstra was interesting in this episode. He was kind of all over the place. Yeah,
he was. And apparently that owl is a spy, or, Dijkstra airmail or something like that?
Yeah. I think, like we talked about before, I think he can see through the owl's eyes and he can probably hear through the owl's ears. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm assuming. Like when Dara was talking, but it's also weird because Dara didn't talk to the owl like that. Because he says, "Tell Dijkstra, I'm done."
Yeah.
So.
And one of the scenes we get Dijkstra talking to the owl, so it's almost like he was talking to someone else in the room.
Yeah, so maybe the owl is just like his familiar and it can communicate with him. He doesn't actually see through its eyes, but...
Cool. That's it. Yeah. We'll say that's it. It's his familiar.
Okay. His familiar. Okay. That's all I had for that one.
Okay. I don't know which number I'm on, but one of my other highlights is props to the technical crew. Cinematography, music, choreography was all good in this episode. The episode was just beautiful. The locations were so lush. I think they've gotten some better locations than last year, because last year was nice, but it seriously looked to me like they could have filmed it up in the mountains from where I live here. And and this time they have these really lush green places, that beautiful waterfall where Jaskier was bathing. Just gorgeous.
Someone's mad at my shirt.
And when they arrive at Sintra, Ciri and Yennefer are standing there. They have this gorgeous shot of the sun setting below Ciri. So they're shooting at the, what is it called? The golden hour? You're a photographer. You know this, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
It was beautiful. And the music was great. It was very inspiring. There was a scene that I'm sure I'll get into a little later that just made me think of Lord of the Rings. And there's a scene when Ciri's raising the bridge, and I'm like, that music sounds so familiar. I just kept banging my head trying to think about where I'd heard that song before, and I realized as I was watching it a second time, it sounds very, very similar to the music from How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, okay.
Go back and listen to that scene. If you've ever watched How to Train Your Dragon, our whole family is a fan of that movie, but that definitely was taken or just made to sound very similar to that scene.
Yeah. I'll have to check it out. I've got one here that's real quick that both times I watched it, I hope we get some sort of answer in the next episode, because we've got to get more from Rents. But do you think, did he poison Lydia, or was it just the fact that it was elder blood? It made Lydia collapse, and I'm assuming she died. I don't know.
Well, that was part of my last point, is that all the different intrigues on the continent, but that being one of them, that he gives her the blood of Ciri, the mutagen that they've made from it. So it was either the way the additions they gave to her blood to become a Witcher mutagen, because we know that lots of Witchers don't even survive that experience with the test of the grasses. But also, Triss had told Tissaia that a drop of her blood, could do something. Even a drop of her blood is powerful.
Yes. Okay. So, and I had forgotten. You're right. I forgot the blood that was in that vial had been doctored up by Triss and Vesemir to make the next Witcher. That's right. I totally forgot about that. It wasn't just her blood in that little vial. So that may have been what it was. So, but it's going to be interesting in the next episode to see where Rince is and what he ends up doing, because she kept referring to her employer as a him. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if there's somebody else we haven't seen yet, or I don't know. And so we may or may not get this tied up in the next episode. I don't know.
Yeah, he
I'll
said
find out
that
in
if
about 20 minutes.
he said that if you do this blood tracing, then your employer may show up. And she kind of seemed hopeful, like she seemed to not think he would show up. She seems a bit dubious about her employer and if he'll actually, show up for her. And she's like, "Whoa, do you think if I do this blood tracing, he'll show up?" So, yeah, I think Lydia was a bit ambiguous about whether her employer was really there for her or not. But she probably doesn't need to know now because she's probably writhing in pain on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. What else have we got here?
Oh, just we got a major scene there with we find that there's a change of power in the Brotherhood of Mages. Tissaia has now set up Vilgefortz as the leader. He's also her lover. We see those two together, and unfortunately, she must have done a little bit of pillow talk with Vilgefortz because she tells him about Triss being there and about Triss and Ciri. So now the Brotherhood knows about Ciri. Yeah, just the whole change in dynamics there. Stregobor and Fringilla's uncle, they've kind of fallen in power, I believe, and Vilgefortz and Tissaia have risen in power.
Yes, yeah, that was interesting. I had another thought here, and it's kind of another quick one, but that whole conversation that Geralt and Jaskier have about Yennefer, when Jaskier says that Yennefer lost her power and her magic, and Geralt didn't realize that, so he suddenly goes, "What? She lost her power?" And Jaskier's like, "Oh, she must have been lying then," because he realizes that if Geralt doesn't know that she lost her magic, then she must have been lying to him. But then he tells him she was saying some incantation about a hut before she disappeared, and that's when Geralt figures out that she was in league with the demon witch, the Deathless Mother, the Voleth Meir. And I love that whole thing when he starts saying the incantation and Jaskier kind of finishes it, and he's like, "Yeah, that's what she was saying." And Geralt's like, "She's in league with the Voleth Meir."
Well, that's why Jaskier thought that she was lying about losing her powers because she just disappeared. He's like, "Well, how can she disappear if she's lost her powers?"
Right. And then Geralt figures out that no, it wasn't that she didn't disappear by her own power. She disappeared by the power of the Deathless Mother because she was accepting her
invitation.
Invite, so.
Yes, I love that. Jaskier. It's funny because Geralt says he needs to go get Jaskier so that he can go find Yennefer, but he didn't really need him because Jaskier doesn't contribute a whole lot to the battle like the dwarves did. But he needs his bestie with him.
I love that battle. I love that battle. Was so hilarious, and I just love the dwarves get his kneecap, and then that one guy cuts the guy's head off and it flies up into the air, which I'm like, okay, I'll suspend my disbelief that how that would happen, but it made for a wonderful moment when Jaskier catches the head. I'm like, how did his head fly up? It was like the blood spout and push it up, and it doesn't matter. We get this moment of Jaskier catching a head, which is just brilliant. So I loved it.
And we realize why Jaskier's not a soldier. He is not a soldier. He's an artist. But
yeah, I absolutely love the return of the dwarves. I think that was just a wonderful, wonderful cameo or whatever to put in there. Their excitement over seeing Geralt again, and the one guy, Geralt says, "Where's so and so? He owes me money." And Yarpen's like, he got married and he left the band." And I'm just like, this is great. I was so excited, and I want to go back and rewatch that dragon episode of the first season now. There's so many things I want to go back and rewatch the first season about now that I can't wait for it to get finished so I can do that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I guess Jaskier did do one thing as, being Geralt's partner in crime there is he kind of was his conscience because Geralt was saying, if we find Yennefer and she's hurt Ciri, I'll have to kill her. And Jaskier's like, well, of course we're going to kill her.
Of course we're going to kill her. Yeah.
No question about that. But, he says, what if she's changed? And, Geralt changed and Geralt came back for his friend. And that's what Jaskier said, friends come back for each other. So he was, despite his hatred for Yennefer, he was actually standing up for her a little bit.
Yes, I loved that moment when the battle is over and Yennefer's kind of walking forward, kind of towards Ciri, and he just pulls his sword out and it stops like right before. And then when the dwarf asks, whose child is she, and he very pointedly says, "Mine." Like, no, there is no indication that Yennefer is going to be, unless something changes, he's very adamant that, no, Yennefer, you have now lost your chance to have any say in this. Now, I hope that changes in the next episode, but we'll have to see. But that moment for Geralt, because that's really, if you think about it, from the first season when he found out about the Child of Surprise and he said he never wanted to get it. And that's even what Jaskier says. You never wanted this Child of Surprise. And he's like, yeah, I didn't think I wanted her either, basically. But now we get her, saying in the middle of the episode saying that he's like a father to her, and him now claiming her. He's like, no, she's mine.
Yeah.
That's my child.
Yeah.
I thought was just amazing.
Yeah, he's not just her protector, he sees himself as her father. And yeah, that's sweet, because I think this, like both seasons, we've mentioned that they have this running theme of progeny and family, and this is his family now. Like, Ciri is his life, and he would die for her, he'd do anything for her. And, having two girls, myself, my husband, would be the same, that very protective father who would do anything for their child.
Yeah, I don't have any children, but there's one, she's a friend, but that definitely I have that in my life, someone who I would definitely protect and do anything for, just about.
Yeah.
That's my kid. She's like my kid.
Wonderful.
Any other notes that we haven't talked about?
Just looking through my stuff here. When I was talking about the cinematography and how beautiful it is, the music and everything, I do have one criticism. I am not fond of Henry Cavill's contact lenses. Those, especially when he was standing in the jail cell with Jaskier, those look like the cheap $30 contacts you can buy at Halloween to go with your Halloween costume. I mean, sometimes they look great because they have this almost like glowing fire to them. They're a little more amber, but they were straight up ugly yellow in the jail.
Yeah,
oh God, get that man some better contacts. Costume department.
I think all of mine have been covered pretty much. I didn't really have anything else to mention. Let's see if I missed anything in my notes or in my points. We talked about Rents, talked about Fringilla.
I think that Vilgeford is definitely playing Tisea, because we know from season 1 that he's a little shady, that dude.
Yeah, the return of the dwarves. Yeah, I think everything I've thought. We talked about Dara backing out of being Dijkstra's spy, and Dijkstra talking about that, saying that, well, we've got everything we need from him. And we talked about Rents, and there's going to be more for Rents, I'm sure, in the future. What about you? Any other notes we haven't talked about?
Let's see. I've got some notes here. You talked about the female dwarf. That was one of the scenes that cracked me up. Jaskier has an admirer. They run across the dwarves, and he looks back at her, and she's giving him, the sweet girly eyes and the smile. We get to see a very rarely seen female dwarf, and yes, they do have beards just like the other dwarves.
Yeah, and Jaskier kind of runs away from her. So.
That whole scene was hilarious. He goes and he grabs some food, and he's talking to the elves, and they're talking to Geralt, and he puts something in his mouth, and he just like lets it drop out again. That whole scene was golden. And then another one is Geralt gets a gorgeous new horse from the dwarves. Yes. The most beautiful mane I've ever seen, and he says, well, you're not normally my type, but That horse is gorgeous, so he must not have a type. His type must not be gorgeous, dark black horses.
Well, Roach was more of a brown kind
Yes.
of just short hair kind of. So, but I love the dwarf saying, "Yeah, that one's too big for us anyway." So I'm like, how did they get it then? Like, why do they have it at all? Like, it's pretty convenient they've got it, but okay, I'll go with it. There's too much that I love about this show to nitpick that kind of thing.
Well, Roach was a mare, and I have a feeling that this new horse is a stallion. He's big, so he's very big for a mare if it is a mare. Yennefer is half elven. Why is she the only one who has violet eyes? Like, none of the elves that we've seen have violet eyes. Ciri doesn't have violet eyes. They said that in the first season, that was one of the indicators that she's part elven, is her violet eyes.
Okay, I didn't remember that, but that is interesting. That if why haven't we seen any other? Maybe that's the whole point of the blood not being pure.
Maybe
anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like low budget on the costume department side because Geralt is the only Witcher with yellow eyes. Why don't the other Witchers have yellow eyes?
Or it could be one of those things like I remember some writings talking about writing on the X-Files where they said there was like a story point that some writer just randomly put in his script that nobody really paid any attention to, that had like major ramifications for the entire series. So it may have been something like that some writer may have put that in there, that elves have violet eyes and nobody else has caught up on it and gone like, oh yeah, we should have some elves with violet eyes,
Exactly. And just the last thing is I love how Tisea is standing up for her girls there. She tells Vilgeford, I don't like putting my girls in trouble unnecessarily. And her conversation with Triss, and poor Triss, she finally realizes that Geralt's been in love with Yennefer this whole time because she finds out through Tisea that he and Ciri showed up at Sodden and they were looking for Yennefer. Mm-hmm. I think she gets a little heartbroken there.
Yeah. So we've got some quotes here. Let's see. I've only got a couple. When at the very beginning of the episode, we're seeing the aftermath of the attack. Yennefer looks at that broken orb thing, and she says, She says, not him. She says, how did it break? And Geralt's answer is, she does that to things.
Yeah, and I have a few because every time Jaskier's in an episode, we get some gems like this one when he's bathing in the cold river and he says, "You could hang portraits off my nipples right now."
My last one is just from it's General Dickhead when they're talking about the elves, and he says, "Oh, grand, we're larding up with pointies who either can't hold their drink or follow orders."
Right. Who needs to know his name? He died anyhow.
Yeah.
Well, I like the scene when Yarpen is talking to Geralt and he's like, okay, and you're going to get a really bad Scottish impression because I just have to. So our friend Lucy in the group, in our shared friend group who is Scottish, you can hold this against me now. Yarpen says to Geralt, "What's the mission if you don't mind me asking?" Geralt says, "I do." And Yarpen's response is, "The secret kind, my favourite." Continues on with, "Come on, boys, the king can wait. We're going on an adventure." Which I absolutely love. Oh my god. The music swells and I got such Lord of the Rings vibes. It was amazing.
Yes. I loved that scene. I had that in my quotes, and when I saw that you had the whole thing, I was just going to let you have it because we're going on an adventure was just absolutely outstanding.
The secret kind, my favorite. Jaskier imitating Geralt when he talks to him about, you're always talking, and says, "Oh, Jaskier, I'm so sad and complicated."
I loved that after Geralt's like says something back to him, and Jaskier's like, "You got to admit that was a really good impression," or something like that.
It was lovely. And of course, the last one, Ciri goes up to Jaskier so he could take her back to Kaer Morhen. He tries to introduce himself, and she just grumpily walks past him. He's like father, like daughter.
Love that was another one of those moments that I love. And it was just, you know, that, and we could talk about it now because that ending of the episode, like I said, here in a few minutes, I'm going to watch the next episode because I can't wait to see. But that, the way they showed those embers kind of going into her ear or into her mouth or however, and we hear the chuckle of the Deathless Mother and we see her eyes kind of change and just that look on Ciri's face that was so perfectly played that I was just like, oh, this is serious now.
Yes.
Like the Deathless Mother's got her. And woo.
And it's so funny that she's been kind of the low-key villain this entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her whole goal was to get out. And we learned that you were right when you assumed it from season or the episode 1 where Vesemir was talking to Ciri about the demon that the first Witchers had to imprison in a hut. That was her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And I was scared that this was going to be, so I hope we have maybe there's some sort of Witcher exorcism ritual that they can get her out of her or what. I hope it doesn't have to harm Ciri to get her out. But
I'm hoping they call on the other Witchers if they have to imprison her again, though, because we need to see those guys in action.
Yeah, and, Geralt says, I'm going to kill a monster, and that's one of the things they didn't do. Originally, they weren't able to kill her, so I think, how is he... Yeah, I can't wait to see this last episode and see how we resolve all these things.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any feedback this week, so hopefully we can get some feedback for next week, and... I haven't dug into the news. Maybe next week I'll try to dig into some of the news of season 3 to see if that's been progressing. I do have one podcast recommendation, and that is Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. I listened to, he interviewed Courtney Cox, and she talks about the Bruce Springsteen video that basically set off her career, and it's just a really good interview with him. He also is, I'm currently listening to, he's interviewing Angie Harmon, who, if you know, she was on Law & Order and Rizzoli and Isles and things like that, and she's just a wonderful person to listen to, and I can't wait. I'm going to start following her on some of her social media because it sounds like she's fascinating.
Oh, cool.
But Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. My recommendation this week is Behind the Scenes. It's a Netflix produced podcast. They basically use it whenever they have a new series coming out, and they kind of go behind the scenes. They do have one for season 2 of The Witcher, which is just kind of a wrap up, so I haven't listened to that one yet. But if you are interested, go back and listen to, I think maybe they've got 4 or 5 episodes when The Witcher first came out last year. They've got a lot of interesting segments, like on the 3 different characters, our 3 main characters, Yennefer, Geralt, and Ciri, but they also have a great episode about the music of The Witcher, and it was really intriguing about how they came up with all the background music for The Witcher using some pretty modern instruments and also some older medieval instruments.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. So why don't you tell us, Lara, how some of our listeners can hear us?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can be heard on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or whatever podcast player of choice that you use. If ratings are available, give us a rating or a review on one of those platforms.
You can check out our website, which is panels2pixelspodcast.com. That's panels2pixelspodcast.com, all spelled out in one big long word, panels2pixelspodcast.
And you can submit any theories or feedback on our Facebook group, and please do, since the finale is coming up. That is at facebook.com/panels2pixels, the T-O spelled out in the middle.
And we are on Twitter at panels2pixels. That's panels, the number 2, and then pixels.
Email us at panels2pixels, number 1 at gmail.com. Panels2pixels, numeral 1 at gmail.com.
We are on YouTube at Panels 2 Pixels Podcast. You can go on there. You can subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and throw a rating up there as well. If we get a chance to give you a shout out, we will.
We're on Instagram at Panels 2 Pixel Podcast.
You can check out all the other podcasts on the Next Level Podcast Network, which is our good friend Ben Beck has been doing quite a bit of work on Wilhelm. The Melting Pat is another one, Podcast Zero, and there's so many more. You can go to nextlevelradioonline.com to see all of those.
Next time, we will continue with The Witcher Season 2 finale, Episode 8, entitled Family.
Okay, Lara, everyone has been waiting. We talked about it before we started recording, and now you have your opportunity to give your podcast proposal, and that's hard to say, podcast proposal of the week.
Podcast proposal of the week. I was trying to come up with some ideas for dumb podcasts, so all I could come up with was a dumb ideas podcast. My daughter helped me with this one, and she said, do a podcast about people who pour milk into their cereal bowl and then the cereal, which she thinks is a dumb idea. So each week someone can submit a dumb idea, and we can rate it up or down on a scale of 1 to 10 of whether it's a dumb idea or not.
I love it. I love it. And Daphne and I will be continuing our discussion about Snowpiercer Season 3. We've got 4 episodes left now, so I'll have a little bit of time where we're going to wrap up The Witcher next week, and then we'll have 2 or 3 weeks of just Snowpiercer, and then I think Mark and I are going to cover Moon Knight at the end of this month.
Oh, so you'll get a little bit of a break. You won't have to do double duty.
Yeah, I won't have to do double duty for a bit, and it'll be nice. And then I'll get back to letting Mark host, and I can just
cruise.
Do the side saddle thing. Yeah.
Very nice.
So, thank you all for listening. I'm Steve.
And I'm Lara.
And this was Panels to Pixels, and we will see you on the next panel. Good night.
Good night.